The effects do matter. The effects do not. Of course, Semmelweis had an accent. He came from Hungary. We don't mention that. And an accent is very nice, but it didn't persuade anybody at that time. And they went on doing just what they did. Semmelweis died at an early age, 47, and he was demonized in his lifetime and for many years after. The death rate in delivery remained very high, and it remained in that condition for approximately 60 years. So there are a number of deaths that occurred because the physicians would not change their modus operandi in delivery, and the physicians did not wash their hands. It still happens. The New York Times reported recently that 20% of the nurses and so forth do not wash their hands when they're in the delivery room. That may be true of the physicians, I'm not sure. But the point is that a lot of people died, and that incident, episode, and time is forgotten. And why do I mention it? Because I work in an area where I report cures of hopeless voice problems. And the field I'm in, called the American Speech Hearing Language Association, is of the view that there are no cures of spasmodic dysphonia. That's the condition. It's called a strangled voice. Diane Rehm has it, and Robert Kennedy Jr. has it. Shadow Stevens had it. Henry Fonda had it. Keith Erickson had it. I was privileged to work with Henry Fonda and help him to get over the strangled voice spasmodic dysphonia, which the medical community says is incurable. He was cured. He went on to do On Golden Pond. And I worked with Keith Erickson, helped him to get out of the condition, and Shadow Stevens. I just talked with Shadow recently. He's been excellent, cured for years and years. Is the condition spasmodic dysphonia called the strangled voice incurable? No. But it reminds me of the Semmelweis scene over, well over 100 years. 1845, 1945. It's over 150 years. Well, the medical profession is saying today, they guarantee in their medical journals, I read them, I find it interesting, they guarantee there are no cures of this condition that Henry Fonda had, that Shadow Stevens had, that Keith Erickson had, and that a list and host of people I've worked with cannot exist. I document the cures. I send the cures, a 2-page report, to 14,300 nose and throat doctors, and they ignore it. They don't accept the fact that this condition is curable. They're well-intentioned. They're entitled to their view. The facts don't matter. The facts don't matter. The people want action, which leads us to the fact that what they're doing in the name of medicine is Botoxing vocal cords, those people with spasmodic dysphonia or bad and raspy voices. And they're doing it maybe 4 to 10 times a year or more, each and every year for life if you have spasmodic dysphonia of the strangled voice. Nobody knows the long-term downside effects on the body. Nobody. In fact, Mitchell F. Brin, a neurologist who brought Botox to the field in 1984, mentioned in 1991 at a meeting in California that he wanted to withdraw Botox at the earliest possible time, fearing the long-term downside effects on the body. That was in 1991. It's never been withdrawn, and it's been passed over. I heard Dr. Mitchell F. Brin make the statement, and I understand that he does not deny it, but he says today that it's dated. Dr. Brin is employed by Allergan, the maker of Botox, nowadays. If you have this condition, if you have the condition, you are automatically told when you see a physician or an academician, a voice of speech doctor, not only in this country, but in the world, you are told that your condition is incurable. You are given a death certificate, and you are told there's nothing you can do. Basically, it's, if you believe in eternity, taking that voice with you to eternity. I don't buy the fact that the condition is incurable, I keep reporting ongoing cures of spasmodic dysphonia. I document the cures. I have a DVD and audio. If you have spasmodic dysphonia, you can get in touch with my office. You get a free copy. Otherwise, it's a fee. My books are in the library, self-help books, Change Your Voice, Change Your Life in the 19th printing. And it's not very kind about what goes on in the field of voice and voice rehabilitation. My book, Stop Committing Voice Suicide, addresses the problems that we have as well, and the symptoms that you may be suffering, and you're going from doctor to doctor and you don't know what to do. It's very simple what you should do. There's another book called Winning with Your Voice that tells you through patients, as does Change Your Voice, Change Your Life, Stop Committing Voice Suicide, how they change for the better. Some are stars, and many are just the ordinary folks like you, and I consider myself just ordinary. Although I may be well known in my field, I'm what is called a maverick. Others use different terms, but I see voice problems as very simple to help, and I report outstanding cures of all types of voice problems. I reported in peer review some years ago in 1974, reporting 98% success by a process called direct voice rehabilitation. What is it? Let me tell you. Direct voice rehabilitation allows me to figure out in a few seconds what you should do with your voice, whether you should go higher or lower, whether you should have midsection breath control, whether you should have diaphragmatic breath control. My ear tells me. The clinical ear in my field is not trained. It's not trained in the medical field, and it's not trained in the academic field that I'm in. Why? They're looking to vocal cords. They're all into high tech to look at vocal cords to see the impairment of the vocal cords, the spasms of the vocal cords and so forth, or organic growths. Now, my position is very clear. The problems that basically are seen, whether they're growths on the vocal cords, benign or premalignant, whether you have bowed vocal cords or unilateral cord paralysis or other problems, are related, associated, and basically caused by talking incorrectly. I mentioned earlier before to you that we have no lessons on the speaking voice, so after puberty, when our voice changes between 12 and 15, we use whatever voice comes out of our mouths, and it may not be the right voice, and all too often isn't the right voice. We live in a cultural society, and we pick up the voices of our parents, our friends, our teachers, and we seldom ever use our real, effective, rich, God-given voice. Be that as it may, when you go to see your physician, you may find, or you go to see your speech pathologist, you may find that they're making a federal case of your condition. It's not a do me, it's a done deal, that you have some kind of disease, that you have a problem that's neurological, or that's beyond just a simple change of voice. That's not true. Most voices require just a simple change. It's amazing how simple I can do voices. I've done it on the national shows, CNN, Regis Philbin, Charlie Rose, Larry King, Oprah, Sally, Maury, and the list goes on and on and on. I can change voices in seconds for the better. You can hear the change. My field says it takes months, if not many months, before they can figure out, hopefully, where your real voice is. That's not true. They reside in a world where the facts don't matter. They want action, but the action is not helping your voice because they don't know how to change your voice for the better, and that can happen in seconds by what I'm doing called direct voice rehabilitation. As I said, the books are in the library. They're free. You don't spend a cent. If you have spasmodic dysphonia, you get a DVD from me. It's free. You get an audio. It's free. And it tells you and shows you the people who are cured of this very serious condition, which the medical field says is lifelong and is incurable. They consider it a disease, a neurological problem, and treat it as a neurological problem, with the speech pathologists affirming that there are no cures, which is interesting because what happens is that I'm the only doctor in the world. That's hard to believe. It's the only doctor in the world. It's hard for me to believe. That's reporting cures of spasmodic dysphonia or unilateral cord paralysis of bowed vocal cords or premalignancies of the vocal cords called papillomatosis. I've done a biopsy study at UCLA under the aegis of the medical department head and neck division some years back. I report cures of these conditions, and I remain isolated reporting these cures because my field, and the medical field, though peer-reviewed, I'm published in medical journals and academic journals, the most prestigious journals, are assuring you, but you don't know that there are no cures of the condition I just mentioned. In 1974, I published in the American Speech and Hearing Association and was privileged to report 98% success for various types of voice problems. That's not bad. The reason for that is I look to a natural approach to help people with troubled voices, whether you have papillomatosis, premalignancies, unilateral cord paralysis, bowed vocal cords, a benign growth on the vocal cords, nodules, polyps, contact ulcers, or a bad raspy voice. You hear raspy voices all over the dial. They're talking like Paul Newman specializes in it, and Clint Eastwood now has one of those voices. There are a lot of people that talk wrong. Henry Kissinger is, I feel the situation. We make much ado about Count Dracula. I want to be your friend, but Count Dracula used a voice right in the face. And that's a saving grace. He had personality traits that we don't find very appealing. He wants to take a little bite, but he talked up in the face where all good and great voices are. And that's what I teach people to do without the accent. When you do that, you can get out of the condition called spasmodic dysphonia, the strangled voice. I can't talk, doctor, they're talking like that. All of these individuals, not only the ones I see, but worldwide, talk in the lower throat. The medical community, my colleagues there, and academia agree. Spasmodic dysphonia is in the lower throat. It's there because the patients don't know how to use their voices and drop down into that voice, and then they habituate it using volume. And the more volume you use, the worse it gets. Morley Safer on 60 Minutes did a program investigating what was going on. He said the more he investigates, the worser and worser it gets. Well, use whatever terms you want. It's getting worser. There is a need to simplify. There is a need. Unfortunately, in this country, if not the world, we're not simplifying. We're making it complicated, and we're making not only the strangled voice, but we're making bowed vocal cords and unilateral cord paralysis into diseases, and it's neurologically caused, and it's this and that. You know, if you use the expression, you know, which Bob Keller of the New York Times, the executive editor, and Paul Steiger of the executive editor of the Wall Street Journal, they use "you know" repeatedly. David Halberstam uses "you know." There are so many "you knows" that these leading lights use. It's off-putting. Every other expression is "you know," and then some of them specialize in "I mean." I know what they mean, but they don't have to say "you know." The problem that I'm talking about is the physicians and the academicians in my field don't know. I'm Mort Cooper. Change your voice, change your life. The Voice Doctor. The facts don't matter. The people want action. Thank you. Bye-bye.